There's already some people in the chat. What a wonderful bunch of beautiful people. You know what? The Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast has the best people. What a wonderful bunch of people. Let's see who we got. First, let's get rid of all this wonderful stuff. What is happening, everybody? This is Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. I play a podcaster on TV. And where else do I play a podcaster? Yeah, let's turn this music off. But I'm happy to see everybody in the chat. It's a wonderful Saturday night. We are back, everybody, here at the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. Who do we got in the chat? We got Tina checking in. Tina, what's happening? Grab your beer. Belinda, one of our patrons, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Ubaldo, buenas noches, everybody. Rolando is in the house. Dale, thank you very much for joining us here on we haven't done a Scarif Live in a while. We were taking a little break. Lots of things were happening. Backyard TARDIS, Nick, another one of our wonderful patrons, not only of our show, but many of the shows on the Red 5 Network. You can check out the rest of the Red 5 Network at bio.link/Red5. There is a podcast or a YouTuber for you. Anything you want to talk about, they are there. Dave Richards, thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, it's been great. So we have a guest tonight, but you know what? Let's I don't know, let me got all these buttons to push. Hold on a second here. Get some stuff ready. You know what? Let's do this live. Fuck it. Let's do it live. Do it live.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Sorry for my potty mouth there, but I just got really excited whenever we do a Scarif Live, and we are back after a couple of weeks of just taking a break. I got with me a new friend, Wade from Records of the Republic. What's up, man?
Not much, man. That was an awesome intro.
Oh, yes.
So we just recently started getting into podcasts in general and
all right,
streaming and all that fun stuff. So I haven't actually seen any of your live streams yet. And we've been slowly working through everyone's. That's a fun intro.
Thank you very much. We like to have fun here at the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. We also like to say "but" a lot, so that's that. Tim Talk is on your left. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight. And that's funny, Dave Richards. I prefer shouty Ro. Yeah, that's cool, man. Every so often you gotta elevate your voice and speak up.
That's right.
Absolutely. So yeah, you know, I wanted to talk, you know, we're back tonight. So I wanted to talk about, you know, obviously everybody's favorite Star franchise. Talk a little Star Wars, just like we used to do back in the day. If you remember Recess, you know, we used to go out and, you know, on the weekends, we'd watch all these cool things. And then come Monday at recess time, you know, after trigonometry and whatever else we had, just to kind of relax and play and then just discuss all the nerdy things. I think as content creators, we should probably get back to just, you know, talking about the stuff that we love. And here we are, Star Wars. May the force be with you, Wade. But before that, I wanted to ask you, you know, there's a lot of things happening out in the world, especially in the world of nerd news. I wanted to ask you if there's any topics lately that that you've been following or anything that you want to maybe kind of tease out for us and our crew here.
You know, we've got so much coming out this year. We've got Mando season 3 in less than 2 weeks. Super excited about that. I don't know if you play a lot of video games, but I do. So super stoked for Survivor. I wasn't super upset by the delay. I'm happy that they're ironing out any of the quirks and issues that they made. They're going to give us a perfect product, which I'm really excited for. We got Ahsoka coming out, but what I'm really excited for is I think what we have the least information on, and
Okay.
that's Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
I love Ahsoka. Ahsoka's a fantastic character, and Djarin and the crew, like Mandalorian's great. I know I'm gonna love those projects.
Sure.
And I think I'm gonna love Skeleton Crew, but we just don't have a lot to work on with it. And me personally, I have maybe kind of a worked out theory as to what we're gonna get.
Sure.
I think Jude Law is gonna play either Kyle Katarn-esque character,
Okay.
or maybe like a young Lor Santeca.
Yeah, that's what everybody's saying. I think I'm with you, Wade. Like you said, we're gonna love Ahsoka. We're gonna love season 3 of Mando. But some of the things that keep me excited is like not knowing a lot. And I know, social media really throws everything out there for people to see. There's trailers that sometimes give away the entire plot, and it's like, once you'd like to be surprised. And I'm really glad that, like Tina says, they're keeping Skeleton Crew kind of quiet. We've gotten, obviously a picture of Jude Law, and some concept art, but that's pretty much it. And I think I'm kind of looking forward to that, the mystery. And I feel like I'm older than you, and in between the original trilogy movies there was 3 years of nothing.
Right.
And once the movie was announced and we went to the box office to get our tickets, a lot of people in the chat are like, box office, what is that? But yeah, I mean, it's nice to be surprised. And I think Skeleton Crew will definitely give us some surprises, I hope.
Yeah, I'm really anytime they keep things hush hush, I for whatever reason I seem to get more intrigued. And I think maybe that's part of their marketing strategy. I'm sure that, they've probably figured out how they want to market it in that regard. But yeah, the less I know about it, the more I want to go see it,
Sure. Yeah. I put up a comment there with from Dale, and I have heard the comparisons of Goonies in space, which is fine. I like Goonies. But yeah, we'll see. There's no release date. There's no other details yet. So just really kind of looking forward to some of the new stuff that, we really don't know a lot about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, are we still getting Visions season 2 this year?
Yes. This year, I know it was announced. The studios were announced that were attached to it, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, Visions was hit or miss for a lot of people. Obviously, the style of the anime, people that are not into anime, I think really had a problem with it.
Sure.
But I thought it was unique. I thought it was different. And if they kind of continue in that vein, there was some really great and I think anime is culturally appropriate, obviously not too much in American audiences, but Asian audiences, Japanese, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's just kind of cool to see like another take on the Star Wars galaxy. I think more people should be a little more open to it. And it definitely surprised me. I didn't like all of them, but some of them were like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Well, I think it was kind of, for me, I looked at it almost as if like it was Star Wars's version of What If, and not necessarily in that same exact vein, but it was a bunch of different people's interpretation of how would we present Star Wars from our style of storytelling.
Right.
And I think from that perspective, I really enjoyed it. I grew up watching a lot of different animes along with just about everything else nerd fandom out there, but I'm really excited, I think, for season 2 because they're doing a lot more international studios. It's not just, Asian specifically. They've got, a studio in Africa, and I think they've got South America, and, they've got a lot of the continents represented. So I think we're going to get an even more broad variety of styles and storytelling, which I was a global studies major in college. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I think it opens up storytelling to a wide degree to more audiences, obviously. And I think, something like Visions, and I would say to some degree Andor as well, I think it has to step outside its safe zone in order
Mhm.
for the franchise to grow. I said this with Brad when we were reviewing Andor, and a lot of people had issues with Andor because there were no Jedi, there was no Darth Vader. It was a little bit, it was, it felt Star Wars, but it was like it didn't feel like this Star Wars. It felt like Star Wars was like over here.
Right.
And I understand that, we're used to, Jedis and Sith and the rebels and the Empire, et cetera, et cetera. We got a little bit of the Empire, but I kind of like the fact that it just did step outside that sandbox that we're used to.
Hmm. Yeah, I really, that's one of the things Kevin and I talk about all the time, at least recently, since it's relatively recent, is just how much we appreciated, I think, how different Andor was while still feeling very
Sure.
much in the Star Wars universe. You
Yeah,
know,
before we get lost in conversation, I wanted to. I totally forgot to ask you. You said that you guys started podcasting relatively. You guys are new, but tell everybody how you guys started, what the name of your show is, where you guys do your thing.
so I'm Wade. I'm one half of Records of the Republic. It's myself and then Kevin. We are the hosts, and Kevin and I are both 90s babies. So we grew up with prequels being our main releases. Obviously, like my first interaction with Star Wars was the original trilogy, as it should be. But I grew up with prequels. Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ewan, and Hayden. Those were like, I'm not going to say idols necessarily, but
Sure.
those were the guys we looked up to. They
Right.
were our generation of Star Wars. He and I went to college together back in 2014 and on, and he and I actually ended up working at the same hotel together.
Okay.
And while we were working there, at one point, he had to radio me to let me know something was going on, and my immediate response was just "Roger, Roger." And from there, it was an immediate click. He was like, "Oh yeah, hey, I know what that is. Did you mean for that to?" And I said, "Well, I just sometimes I kind of do it."
Yeah.
And from there,
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny how that happens? It just kind of slips out.
yeah, that's right. Um, so from there, we kind of hit it off. We started talking more Star Wars, and really became close friends through Star Wars,
Sure.
to the point where the last, I don't know, 3-4 years we've been states apart, but we constantly text each other. We've constantly, like, we'll get online and play Battlefront together, and
Sure.
do anytime a movie comes out, we'll send each other reviews and what we think, Easter eggs, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and recently, we were having a conversation about Star Wars a couple months ago, and I was like, "Hey man, what if we recorded this?"
Yeah.
And I was kind of joking, but he said, "Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I've got the gear on my end. Let's do it." So I'm like, "Oh wait, really?" So we actually start sitting down and planning out, all right, what do we want to do? And so as of this Thursday, we've released our fourth episode.
Oh,
And
very nice.
so it's fun. And really our thing is we like talking Star Wars.
Sure.
That's we get to set aside time each week that we know is on the calendar for us to sit down and talk about latest episode of Bad Batch or latest announcement or delay or, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've just absolutely loved having this opportunity to sit down and record it, and then meeting all of these other Star Wars fans. I
Sure.
live in a really rural area of North Carolina where, most of my friends out here are out hunting and fishing and stuff like that. And I enjoy all of that,
Sure.
but they're also not very much into things like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Um, and so getting online and doing this has really helped us connect with so much of the Star Wars community out there. So it's been really neat to see just how interconnected everyone is online, and the different podcasts that they're. I mean, podcasts have opened my eyes to so many different avenues of Star Wars. So it's been really neat to get involved in that regard.
Sure, yeah, and we'll talk about that. That's going to be the bulk of our conversation. I always find it interesting, and I asked you before we went live. I asked you if you guys were intimidated by the fact that you are going to be putting yourselves out there in a community that already probably has, a couple of thousand Star Wars podcasts. I mean, I did the same thing in 2019 when I started our podcast, our show with Brad. But so I'll ask you, were you guys like intimidated, afraid? What was your thinking?
Not really. I mean, so our goal going into this was never to try and grow this huge following or anything like that. We're not necessarily trying to make this a career at some point. It's really just a hobby for us, and
Uh-huh.
it's an opportunity to connect. And when we look at it from that point of view, it's much easier for us to sit down and say, all right, what did we enjoy for the week? Like, what kind
Sure.
of Star Wars did we dive into? Did we read a book? Did we play this
Mhm.
game? Did we unlock this new level? And then we just sit and talk about it and try and engage other people and
Yeah,
see what interests them. What part of Star Wars are you guys interested in or want to talk about or hear us talk about?
yeah,
And from there, that's just it's not it's not really an intimidation kind of thing for
sure.
us. We're not. It's just us engaging with other Star Wars fans, and that's the
Absolutely.
only way we look at it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it seems like no, I mean, I think that's great. I think you shouldn't be intimidated. I think I read somewhere somebody had posted a quick little tweet that said, "Make sure that your dreams don't stay dreams. Just dive in." Right?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. Oh, looks like your significant other is in the chat. Thanks for joining us, Penny.
Yes, she is.
Very nice. So, real fast, since your wife is on here, does she share your nerdiness of Star Wars, or is she what I call an agnostic, like my wife? She saw the movie once, and that was it.
She's not agnostic. So when we started dating, she had told me, and I give her a hard time about this now because she didn't realize how deep she was getting into this, but she had told me, yeah, I'm a fan of Star Wars. Like, I like the movies. I've enjoyed that. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Let me tell you about all these books I've read and all these video games I've played and all this and all that. And she realized, oh no, 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 no. This is a little
This
bit
is
more than she
serious.
asked
Yeah.
for.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she sometimes if she wants my attention and I'm like laying on the couch snapping or something like that, like the other day she did this. She put on Phantom Menace,
Hmm.
and like a couple minutes into it, I woke up and I'm like, oh, and then she pauses it and goes, oh, hey, by the way, since you're up. And so she kind of uses that to her advantage sometimes. But
That's
no,
funny.
she enjoys Star Wars. For our honeymoon, for example, she let me pick Disneyland
Oh,
as our honeymoon, and so we got to go to Galaxy's Edge. She's a huge Disney fan. We're both
oh,
Disney
that's cool.
adults,
That's good.
but I don't really care about a lot of the other stuff at Disneyland. I mostly cared about Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
And so I planned one day, she planned the other day. And my day was full of just lightsaber build, R2 unit build, riding all the rides,
Yeah.
tasting all the food.
Sure.
So that was our honeymoon. But
That's awesome. Very nice, very nice. Quick reminder, later on towards the end, I'm gonna do a giveaway. I'm gonna ask a question of the chat, but this is what I'm giving away a Star Wars R2D2 USB card charger. I think his little head moves and you put him in the cup holder. It looks a little weird. It looks like he's amputated his feet.
he's
But,
missing some legs.
yeah, but it's really cool. He's got 2 little USBs, right in front. You can plug in your phone charger, and, he can be your co-pilot. So we're gonna give that away, one question Sentry mode, for anybody in the chat that wants to participate. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. We've got a really interesting topic for me because I think, as a content creator, versus just a simple Star Wars fan, I think there are times when we wear different hats. Obviously, we love Star Wars and we do what we do because of that, and other geeky things. But you mentioned the fact that you guys started your podcast. Was there a I guess was there a mental break where you said where you guys are starting to find that your roles as Star Wars fans are slightly different than your roles as content creators? Is there something there?
I think for Kevin, yes.
Okay.
For me, not so much. I told him, like, since The Force Awakens has come out, every single movie or show that's come out, I have religiously sat down and I'll watch it twice through. I'll watch it once just for pure enjoyment, and then I'll watch it a second time in a row for analytical Easter eggs. What does this mean? What does that mean? Etc. And so I've always kind of really dived head in to this. And so I don't really look at it any differently doing this. I think he has started to.
Okay.
He's much more, we kind of put it this way. I'm the intellectual and he's the emotional in our relationship. And so he's always just been there to enjoy and watch it and just absorb as much as he can. And, like he's a kid. And I mean that in a good way.
Sure, we're
If
all kids.
Kevin,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're watching, Kevin. But he's had to really kind of adjust how he starts to look at everything and what kind of notes is he going to take so that when we talk about this, is it going to be something that's going to be interesting, or is it going to be something that kind of falls flat? And so we've kind of had to adjust a little bit, but for me, Star Wars is Star Wars. When I watch it, I find the things that look exciting to me and I talk about them.
Sure.
And that's what I do with any Star Wars fan. And I just kind of translate that to a recording and
Right.
say, hey, there you go. What do you guys think about what I thought?
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned notes, and with my to my co-host Shanti, that's a four-letter word. She never reads the notes that I provide her, and a lot of times I have heard, some podcasters, some content creators, they take a break because providing I guess providing content, it's nerve-wracking. It's kind of mind-numbing sometimes, and it does seem like work. You enjoy something, sporadically,
Sure.
whatever, but when you have a set schedule, when you put yourself in that role of providing content and you have people counting on you to kind of cheer you on and provide that content, sometimes it does seem like it is homework, and then
Sure.
the enjoyment gets stripped away. Has that ever happened to you, or do you foresee that happening?
I think at some point it might, but with us only being 4 episodes in, I mean, we're still trying to figure out how to work our
Sure.
microphones and our cameras, and
Yeah.
so there's enough learning curves there that really for us, once we get on and start recording, it's just natural. It all flows. It's just Star Wars. We've got an ongoing between besides our text messages. We've got a shared notes on our phone where we'll sit there and we'll add what things we may want to talk about in
Right.
the next episode, so on and so forth. And we kind of have this idea that, we can always fall back on whatever's coming out that week.
Sure. Yeah.
There's always the new episode of Bad Batch, and then there's going to be Mandalorian, and then
Right.
Jedi Survivor, and Disney seems to be pumping out enough that there's always something there that we can talk about if we can't come up with ideas.
Sure.
But I think because we kind of live Star Wars so much on a regular basis, we constantly have something new. I'm constantly reading a new book, and he's starting to get into the books again, and so there's always something new for us to say. This is what I experienced this week, and I
Sure.
really enjoyed this, or I really didn't enjoy this, and here's why. And then let me
Sure.
know how you guys feel about it. And that's kind of how we do things right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I posed the question if anybody has any questions in the chat, and we do have one for
Ooh.
you. Tina, our girl Tina says, since Wade is a prequel baby, what did you think of Kenobi?
That's rough. So I love Ewan. I love Ewan and Hayden, and I think, like most fans love or hate the show, we were happy to see them both together. I think they have chemistry on screen, and I think they're fun. But the show was, I'm not going to say it was my favorite. I'm not going to say it was my least favorite. It was kind of middle of the road for me. There were parts that I enjoyed. Obviously the lightsaber battles are always fun to see. Um, do I think it could have been better? Yeah, I think they probably could have gone in some other directions that would have been more interesting. But overall, I would say I enjoyed it from just a purely Star Wars fan, aside from critiquing anything. Yeah, it was enjoyable. It would not drive me to purchase Disney Plus, I would say, if I didn't already have it.
Oh, okay.
But in conjunction with all the other Star Wars stuff we get,
Yeah.
yeah.
And obviously, you're not going to know what Kenobi was like if you hadn't had Disney Plus. And Ubaldo says that is a heavy question, and I totally get it. For me, obviously, I enjoy and the Anakin Obi-Wan Kenobi dynamic. The relationship in the prequels was amazing, and it was obviously fleshed out a lot more in Clone Wars and some of the animation. But I feel like the impact was watered down with the Riva storyline.
Yeah.
Which it's a new character. I think a lot of people really were tuning in to really dive in a lot more with Anakin and with Obi-Wan, and throwing this Riva character in there just didn't work out for me. It was distracting for the most part. I really love the Inquisitors, obviously, from the animation. But again, a little, it left a lot to be desired as far as the story. Especially when it comes to Riva. I didn't mind the actress; she was, cool. I liked all the promotional stuff that they were doing, but just when you watch it from beginning to end, just something about that storyline was just very distracting. I think they could have done more with the dynamic of the two main characters that I think everybody was, tuning in for.
That's what they were there for. They were there for
Yeah.
the Ewan and Hayden 100%. Anything else they brought in, I think, was extra. I mean, I liked Leia. I thought that was a fun dynamic,
Sure.
especially since, original trilogy, specifically the original Star Wars, we already got the Obi-Wan Luke relationship. So, I thought the Leia thing was kind of fun. I think there were some hiccups there in trying to recover her, and, could there have been simpler ways to do it? I probably. But overall, I wouldn't say I was upset with it. I agree with you with the Reva storyline.
Sure.
I think it took away from the main story, which was Vader and Obi-Wan.
Absolutely. I think it definitely took away from that main story.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Andrew from the Science Fictionary, do you have any interest in visiting sunny Mos Vespa? Little inside joke from a post he posted earlier for me. But yeah, Book of Boba Fett is let's not get into that right now because we could probably talk another half hour on that. Dave Richards has another question for you. Outside of Star Wars, what other franchises are you into?
That's a good question. Let me look at my Funko collection. No, I am an all-around nerd. I like just about everything. Not a huge fan of Star Trek.
Don't tune in next week then.
Okay, deal. I like Marvel movies. I like some DC characters. I think I like Marvel more. Lord of the Rings is probably number 2 for me, second to Star Wars. I'm a huge fantasy fiend, so I love D&D.
Sure.
Doctor Who. I kind of like it all, and that kind of helps me, enjoy. Sometimes, like, I don't know. Have you read the Brotherhood book?
No, but I heard of it. Yeah.
So they make a Doctor Who reference in it.
Oh, very, very nice.
And
wow.
You only know it if you've seen like Clone Wars. There's an episode with Professor Hu Yang, who is a droid voiced by David Tennant.
Yeah.
And in the book, they make a line reference saying, these younglings about to go to the gathering are talking about this rumor that Professor Hu Yang showed up over 1,000 years ago at the temple in a big blue box.
Wow.
And so, cool. Enjoying different fandoms allows you to enjoy some of those little Easter eggs.
Sure.
But yeah, I kind of like just about everything you throw my way.
Excellent. Yeah, you should follow Science Fictionary. Head on over to there. They do a lot of Lord of the Rings and fantasy and stuff like that. Really
Definitely checking
great
them
channel.
out.
Um, okay, so Star Wars, our relationship, the one of the things that I find interesting when it comes to fandom and interacting with people online is how personal we all get about our likes and our dislikes. And obviously, I think when we talk about being content creators, we obviously have to be, or at least my personal belief is that you really have to be careful how you talk about what you don't like. Anybody can talk about how amazing something is that you
Yeah.
like, but if there's a certain something that you just don't care for, you either you either don't talk about it, or if you are asked, you have to kind of creatively critique it, or say, it's just not for me. um for us, when we first started the show back in 2019, we started it right at the we had Star Wars Celebration here in Chicago, and we were very vocal about not liking The Last Jedi, and that kind of generated interest from a certain aspect of the fandom, which we weren't really looking for.
Sure.
We're not the types of people that that do 102 videos every other week on how we hate The Last Jedi. That's just not
Right.
our cup of tea. um but again, if somebody asks us whether we like it or not, we'll just say no, we don't like it. But it gets so personal, and I wanted to ask you, whether it's you responding to a fan as a fan, or responding from the podcast account. How do you deal with differing opinions, or how do you even deal with the passion if anybody answers you in a way that to you might seem maybe over the top?
You know, there have been a couple of times where I posted something that, was talking about something that I didn't like in the sequel trilogy. And I think a lot of people have those opinions. I think they're fair. But first, I always try to set it up in a semi-neutral state. Like, I don't sit there and bash it. I don't sit there and put
Right.
it down, or say, a lot of times I'll follow it up with, I did like this, or I did like that.
Sure.
I just wasn't a fan of this. And so I haven't had to encounter too much negative response, but I think part of that's just because of how I usually set up my criticism and try to do it in a manner that people can respect without like lashing out.
Sure.
Um, if people lash out, usually I'll talk to them and I'll ask, why is that something you're so passionate about? Why is this
Sure.
something that you feel the need to tear someone down because they have a view that differs from yours on an imaginary movie or TV
Sure.
show? This is all make believe.
Wait a minute, it's not imaginary. It's that Star Wars is a documentary, damn it. The
I mean,
historical
it just
accurate.
I get having a love for it. Trust me, I love Star Wars. But there comes a point where you gotta kind of separate reality from make believe and realize, the reality is not everything's going to hit the mark for everyone.
Sure.
And I think the best way I usually try to de-escalate a conversation like that is by saying, there's enough Star Wars out there for everyone.
Sure.
If you don't like this, but you like that, well, tell me why you like that.
Yeah.
Talk all about it to me. I'm all ears. And that's kind of my view on it. There's Star Wars out there for everyone. Let's like what we like. We can talk civilly about what we don't like, but if you can't be civilized, maybe that's when we kind of cut those conversations out.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I always say, every so often I catch myself saying, if you cut me, I will bleed Star Wars. And it is kind of, we do take that position. It's just embedded in our DNA.
Mhm.
Some of us watched the original Star Wars in the theaters. Some folks, there are different introductions into this fandom because there is so much Star Wars. And I think that's what makes it. I don't think any other franchise has has expanded its own universe the way Star Wars has. I mean, obviously you've got Star Trek, and there's a whole bunch of Star Trek and fans, et cetera, et cetera. But Star Wars is unique in a way where, you've got the original trilogy, these 3 films that were released in the 70s. And now, 4 decades later, we've got, more stories coming out, fleshing out characters and situations and just really going in deep on, in this galaxy that a lot of us are very familiar with.
Right.
And that gets me to a news article that was circulating the interwebs here. Liam Neeson recently says that Star Wars is being hurt by so many spin-offs. It's taken away the mystery and the magic. I wanted to get your take in because that was one of my news pieces that I wanted to kind of tease out. What do you think of Liam Neeson's comment there? Do you agree or disagree?
I could see where maybe he's making a semi-valid point, but for me personally, I don't agree. I think more Star Wars, whether you like it or not, just opens up the possibility for more people to put their foot in the door. I don't think it necessarily takes away from the mystery of it. Maybe it's just because I'm just crazy about it, and I'm the kind of fan who will gobble up everything they throw at me.
Sure.
I tend to enjoy everything. I've kind of got a childlike enjoyment of it. There are things that I'm sometimes not going to enjoy, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with him. I like more Star Wars. I think maybe you could argue that if they start putting out too much, like I think Disney was starting to at first with the movies, and that's one of the reasons they may have had to scale back a little bit. I think things started getting watered down, and you had some, the quality kind of took a decline. It kind of dropped a bit. And I think that's one of those, they had to kind of reel it back in and start planning again and, try to figure out a different avenue. But I think you can have a lot of Star Wars and have good Star Wars, but you got to get the right people in place to do it.
Well, yeah, that's the trick. I mean, people talk about the sequel trilogy and how there was so much lack of planning. It's apparent to some people. It's not apparent to other people. It is just, it's kind of subjective there. But, I want to say that for the most part, I want more Star Wars, as much Star Wars as I can get. But I tend to agree with Liam Neeson a little bit because there is a lot of Star Wars. And to me, I remember, going to the theater to watch a Star Wars before there was anything on the small screen. And it was an event. You call 20 of your closest friends, you go hang out and have some dinner and drinks, and then you head over to the theater and you enjoy it. You enjoy it on the big screen. Star Wars on the small screen has kind of diminished that experience for me, at least. I don't care how good your home theater is. Nothing beats that communal aspect of going to a theater with strangers and everyone laughing at the same place, crying at the same place, getting excited at the same place. It's a magical thing to experience. A movie as epic as the Star Wars films have been in a large movie house on a big screen. It's fantastic.
Well, and I definitely want them to continue that. I want to see these movies come back to theaters.
Sure.
I don't want these streaming releases only. I'm okay with getting these streaming shows. I think for the most part they're a good thing, but I also want those movies back in theaters. Like I said, my only experience with seeing Star Wars in theaters was the sequel trilogy and Rogue One and Solo. So that's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is something magical about being in the theater and getting to experience all this. Rogue One was fantastic for me. I
Oh
took
yeah.
two of my younger cousins with me and I dressed up in my Jedi gear, and, they gave me a hard time about it, but it was awesome. We went to the premiere and had so much fun. And, they sat there and kept giving me a hard time for being a nerd because I'm pointing out all these Easter eggs and all these things that we're seeing that I've seen in Rebels, or, so on and
Sure.
so forth. And so, I agree. I think there is something magical about it. And I think what I really think they need to do is just space out the movies, really give them the time to put the quality and value into them, into planning and then releasing,
Sure.
instead of just boom, 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 back to back to back to back, mass producing for profit.
Yeah, and I think that's we just dropped a show last Thursday regarding movies as art or product, and back in the 70s, I think there were a little bit more art. Arguably, nowadays, obviously, The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker are product because,
Mm-hmm.
Disney spend a boatload of money and they wanted to get their money back as fast as humanly possible. People have investors.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. And I think that is one of the reasons that perhaps it was rushed. And it couldn't have been, it could have been a lot better planned than it was, but here we are. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think as fans, obviously we're going to be open to more Star Wars because we love the IP.
Right.
As content creators, we have to kind of, I guess, offer our audiences a unique perspective on just, more than just, oh, I love it, I love it, I love it,
Right.
because that kind of falls, on deaf ears, and it's a little too vanilla, if you know what I mean. I think, the kick, if you will, is the ability to be able to critique something that you love, but not crap all over the
Yeah.
opinions of somebody that might not, agree with you.
To do it with some grace
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
humility. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Um, Again, let's see. Should we do this giveaway? I'm gonna show this again. I'm gonna give this away in a little bit before we end. But it's an awesome R2D2 USB car charger. And I tried to give it away a couple of weeks ago, but nobody entered. But let's see if we can give it away in a couple of minutes. So let's do this. I wanted to ask you what your top. Let's since we're at 45 minutes in, I want to get your top 2 Star Wars movies and share with our audience what that is and why.
Mm. Top 2 favorite. Do they have to be in any order, or
No.
can I just say okay?
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi,
Okay.
Phantom Menace.
Oh, very nice. Interesting. Yep. Phantom Menace.
I know Jar Jar is a little bit of an issue for some people. I'm not going to dive into that. As a kid, I thought Jar Jar was funny, and I think that was the point of him.
Sure. Yeah.
But Luke, getting to see him come to this place of, elevation in terms of his ability and who he was and how he thought through things. And, especially at the end when he's with Vader and Palpatine, and, he's at a point where he throws away his lightsaber and, he's not going to turn to the dark side. That is what being a Jedi is about.
Mm-hmm.
And so much so that he was able to get his father to turn back to the light. And so that, for me, I mean, Luke, probably one of my all-time favorite characters. And then Phantom Menace was this awesome intro into a whole new chapter of Star Wars. For me, I kind of got lucky that when I started in Star Wars, I got to go straight from the original trilogy to the Phantom Menace. And so it was a little different for me. But I look at, and I kind of base my favorite movies off of my favorite characters.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's the only movie that has Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's one of my all-time favorite Jedi.
Oh, very nice.
I can't get away from that. And then It's got Ewan McGregor. who is probably my favorite actor on the planet. And so, you got my top three favorite characters in, I wouldn't say Obi-Wan's peak condition there, but Qui-Gon and Luke are both peak in canon movies. So those are my two favorite personally.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Oh, and I posted a question earlier regarding rating Star Wars movies. Do you find that your ranking of the films, do they shuffle around every so often, or are you kind of a set it and forget it?
The last spot does not shuffle around.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for me. And
yep, I'm pretty sure we're probably on the same.
Yeah, every time, and it's funny, every time we mention that movie on our show, I have to take a tequila shot, but I didn't bring my tequila bottle out, so let's not mention it.
We won't talk about it. But I mean, the middle, I would say, gets kind of muddled.
Yeah.
For me, the first three will switch back and forth, but they will always stay in the top three spot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And then everything else will shift around depending on what kind of mood I'm in, what am I feeling nostalgic for, and it'll shift around from there.
Yeah.
But personally, there isn't one Star Wars movie that I will go to and say I'm just going to rewatch this and do it out of order. If I rewatch Star Wars movies, I'm watching them all and I'm doing it all in order. And I that's just an OCD thing for me. It doesn't matter. I have to start with Phantom Menace, and chronologically, in terms of storyline, I have to just watch it straight through. And I can't go from watching Return of the Jedi and starting back at, as much as it hurts me to watch some of those other ones, I can't skip those and go back to Phantom Menace. I have to see it through to the end.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. That's too funny. All right. Let's give away this R2D2 USB card charger, and this is for anybody in the chat who is a US resident only, because it's really expensive to ship out to the UK or Australia. I had shipped out a child's golf set to Australia, and I didn't know at the time that I was shipping to Australia. And boy, did that cost me an arm and a leg.
I can imagine.
All right. So anybody in the chat, you guys are more than welcome to participate here for this R2D2 USB car charger. I'm going to give you the question. The question is, I won't put it on the screen because I need to hold this and I can't type with one hand, but who is the American special effects artist who pioneered and developed the use of computers in filmmaking, especially in the original Star Wars, and had a camera system named after him? Anybody in the chat? First person who answers that in the chat gets this USB car charger mailed out to them. We'll add in some Scarif Scuttlebutt stickers and some Red 5 stickers. What else? What else is on your radar? What do you guys have coming up on your show?
Next week, we're going to be putting together a Mandalorian bingo sheet and inviting any of our listeners to play along. We'll probably do some kind of giveaway. We're going to essentially just use a blank bingo card, and we're going to tell people that they have to do a minimum of 5 different predictions of what they're going to see in Mandalorian Season 3. And it can't be anything we've seen in trailer, like Bo-Katan shows up. Like, yeah, okay, we're not going to give you that, But Bo-Katan wields the Darksaber against Moff Gideon. It could be something like that. Or we're going to see a Mythosaur at some point. Or, just go wild with it. But we're going to do that and then ask for those to be turned in the following Tuesday before Mando gets released, so that we can kind of keep track as we're playing. I'm going to split the load so that I'm not doing all of them. Kevin's going to have to pull some weight, but we're going to kind of see if anyone gets a bingo. And then if they do, we'll probably do some kind of giveaway for it.
Very nice.
That's something we're going to talk about. Obviously, Bad Batch is coming out with Retrieval, I think is the name of the episode,
right?
Which kind of gives us an idea of probably what we're going to see.
Sure.
Something
Right. Something was stolen
Yeah,
in
something's
this
missing.
last episode.
It's Echo. No. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of our goal for next week. We'll probably talk a little bit about some of the books we've been reading. I've been working through the old EU Rogue Squadron books right now, which I have never read before,
Okay.
and I absolutely love them. I'm all
Very
about
nice.
dogfighting, fighter pilot,
Sure.
stuff like that. So that perspective in those books is just so much fun.
Were you upset when they announced that they were not going to be producing Rogue Squadron?
Ironically, no,
Okay.
because I have only just started reading these books.
Hmm.
So I didn't really know much about what Rogue Squadron was prior to the announcement. Um, I guess knowing now, yes, very much
Right.
so.
Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020.
Right.
Um, I would have loved to see a Rogue Squadron project. I
Sure.
really, really would have.
Yeah.
It's everything about flying in real world and in fantasy.
That's
Flying
cool.
is just the coolest idea to me. And so, like the Squadrons video game that came out, I loved it. Loved it so much. I
Very
just love
nice.
the idea of being in a cockpit.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Last episode, I promised our friend Ali K that I was going to answer a question that he posed, and I forgot to record it. But so on Tuesdays, we usually release the audio portion of our Scarif Live Saturday night shows in the podcatchers. So, Ali, if you're listening, I apologize, but here is the answer to this question. We're going to ask Wade the same question. First of all, Wade, what would you rather have, a fully functional lightsaber or have the ability to throw lightning bolts like Palpatine?
Lightsaber.
Don't have to think about it, huh?
I've probably got about 3 or 4 sitting over there. Our tax return just came in, so my wife let me buy the Obi-Wan Kenobi Legacy set that Disney
Yeah.
came out with at D23, where it comes with all 3 of his lightsabers, and
Oh, nice.
so I bought that because my wife loves me. And thank you, Penny. Thank you so much.
She's a keeper.
She is. Yep.
Oh, and she just says lightning bolts all the way.
Well, she probably want to use those on
She's
me
already,
every once.
exactly. Yeah.
Dishes need to be done.
That's too funny. So looks like Dale Erdman was guessing on the answer to that question. And it is not George Eastman, Mr. Kodak himself. But looks like Tina is out. She's not well versed in the behind the scenes cinematography aspect of the Star Wars, but that's okay. We still love you, Tina. Excellent. All right, cool. So again, we are dropping this audio in the podcatchers. If you missed it, catch it wherever you get your other favorite podcasts. Quick little announcements. We are going to be recording a couple of new shows coming up, and we would love to hear your feedback on previous shows. We love to hear voicemails. So if you want to drop us a voicemail and let us know what you heard, or let us know what your comments on are on some of the previous shows, you can give us a call at 773-234-8659. That is the Scarif Scuttlebutt hotline. One last call on the answer to the giveaway. If anybody wants to give another guess, the R2D2 USB card charger will be for you. If you answer, who is the American special effects artist who pioneered the development of computers in filmmaking and had a camera system named after him? I don't think it would be fair for me to answer your camera question, says Andrew from the Science Fictionary. Well, we are going to sign off in 2 minutes. So if you pop that question, that answer in there, all is fair in love and Star Wars. Isn't that correct?
Sounds right.
Excellent. So, Wade, thank you so much for making yourself available to talk Star Wars here. Next time we'll get your partner involved, but why don't you tell the folks that are watching in the chat where people can find you?
Yeah, so you can find us on most social media platforms. We've got an Instagram profile, we've got a Reddit, we've got Twitter, and then you can give us a listen at any point on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, pretty much most of your mainstream podcast platforms.
Excellent.
And we are on daily. So if you're on Twitter or you're on Instagram, you have a question, you just want to hang out, chat, hit us up. Kevin and I are both on the accounts constantly.
Very nice. That's awesome. Rural Farm Boy says John Sumatra. Isn't that a sex position? It's Kama Sutra. Oh no, that's something else. All right.
Close.
Close. Excellent. All right, guys. Everybody in the chat, thank you very much for joining me on this weekend's edition of Scarif Live. Remember to ask your smart speaker, just yell it out in the ether and say, "Hey, Siri." Uh-oh, my phone just started. Why don't you play the latest Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast? Until then, this is Ro. Thank you very much, Wade. And that is the Scuttlebutt. Take care, everybody.